Hello. So welcome to I guess Lab Assignment 6, and this is the week where we're gonna have a little fun and cover some curve and surface editing techniques. So this file is the surface editing skills file, and we'll just sort of work through it. So starting off from the left, here we go, and you'll see the sort of command names written out here for the most part, right? So here are basically, these are a couple of polylines, and you'll see that they're joined this way. They don't have to be joined, but usually I just draw with polylines regardless, because you can always explode it if you need individual line segments. Joining them after the fact is a pain. So, fillet. This is the same as the ones that you guys have seen in AutoCAD. Once I run it, it asks me for a radius. So I'll change the radius to 10, as shown here. So the radius is 10. You can choose whether or not you want to join them, and so you probably want to, and that will automatically join the fillets and the whole curves after you run the command, right? So you have an option to choose that. So first curve, this one to this one, and you'll see that. Run it again by right-clicking or spacebar again, here to here, again here to here. Now you'll notice that the reason I kind of show these three different angles is that the difference, even with the same radius, like you'll see a very big difference in the fillet because of that sort of angle, whether it's acute or obtuse or a 90-degree angle. I can do a dimension radius just to show you that, okay, these are actually all the same. So you'll see that these are all radius 10 curves, right? These are all radius 10 fillets, but because of the angle that in which these lines come together, obviously the acute ones will take off a lot more, the obtuse ones will have a lot less impact. So when you're doing this, that's actually something to kind of take into consideration. Okay, simple enough. All right. This is called the FilletCorners, and this is actually the same command except you can do it to a closed sort of polyline or a shape like this, and it'll do all the corners all at once instead of having to do them one by one. So FilletCorners, fillet radius, let's do 3 here, and you'll see it basically does them all, right? And you'll see the same difference. You'll see the much more pronounced in the acute corners, and then in the obtuse corners, you'll just barely see it. Okay, so these are the fillet commands. Now, obviously, because there's a fillet for curves, then there is a fillet for surface. Okay, so this is actually basically roughly the same setup. So let's copy this over and fillet, and you'll see that I type fill, and then basically all the sort of whole fillet family of things pop up, right? So fillet surface, and then radius. So I'll click on the radius again and say 10. So first surface, and notice that these commands kind of actually care if you click on one end or the other, right? So you'll want to click on the ends that are closer to the side where you want to fillet. So first surface, second surface, same thing. And the same thing. So this is basically the surface version. This would be the same as if I took these guys and extruded them up. It would basically be just to show you roughly the same thing. Though you'll see that this version, because it's joined together and I don't have isocurves on it, actually already kind of merged the sides or the isocurves. There are situations where this is actually going to be desirable. Especially if you're going to be doing a pattern on a surface like this, then this actually is going to work a lot better. Okay, so let's just delete those. All right, next. This is a cube, right? So let's just copy this a couple times. I'll copy this up, these are all just the base cubes. All right, fillet surface with a radius of 2. So it's the same command. Now, what I'm showing here is that, okay, these are surfaces that only just have 2 contact sides. Well, what if you have something like this where there are more than 2 contact sides? So if you run the fillet surface command, let's do a radius of 2 this time, right? It's a lot smaller. So let's do here and here. Oh, so you'll see it will fillet this, but it won't do anything to the adjoining sides. And if you keep on doing it, trying to, let's say you're trying to do the cube, right? Fillet that with that, okay. And then this side with this side. You'll get something like this, where, you know, basically one operation doesn't really acknowledge the existence of the other, and just sort of based off of, you know, which sequence you kind of did it in, right? So this isn't, you know, ideal for a polysurface situation like this. Okay, so that comes in, brings us to the next command, which is the FilletEdge. So FilletEdge. Next radius, you'll have to change the sort of next radius to 2, like here, radius equals 2, and show radius should be on. So in this case, we're going to do these 3 sides. So this edge, and this edge. And it actually shows you the radius that you will be filleting on, right? And so this one, after I type enter to kind of continue, I won't change anything here. This is the default, right? Just to show you what it does. So you can actually, okay, so this actually takes into account and does all 3 fillets at the same time. So you can actually do, you know, let's say all 6 fillets of the cube and make it into a sort of rounded cube all at the same time. So the variation off of that, if I do the same command and I do essentially the same 3 edges, okay, and say enter, is that I can actually change these end fillets. So if I click here and make it larger, and while I'm sort of dragging this, I can actually like just put in, let's say 4, right? And that would actually change this to 4. Let me click on that. And you can drag it, but you know, entering is probably a better idea. So put in like 6 and enter, right? And finish it. And so you'll see that this actually allows you to do a variable side radius fillet from one end to the other while you're sort of doing this. All right, so cool. All right, let's move on to the next set. So these are a couple lines similar to the ones we saw. Now this is the BlendCrv command. So the BlendCrv, select curve to blend. So this is also one where it matters which end you're picking. So I'll start here on the end of here and there. And what you'll see is that it basically interpolates. You'll get some sort of points that you can kind of adjust. I'm going to leave them as default for now, but I'll show you kind of what it does in the next one. The reason you have to be careful like which end you pick is because, you know, if I do this and then do that, then it'll do something like that, ridiculous like that. Okay, so it'll try to connect whichever end of the line segment you're clicking on that's closer. Okay, the next one, you know, you can leave these the same, but this, if you want to kind of play with, basically allows you to kind of change the tangency handles of the curve, like how strong, how far they go, right? So it allows you to kind of modify the blending behavior a little bit based off of, you know, what you're trying to do. Now, generally, I don't mess with them too much because the sort of default settings usually blend pretty well, unless you're really trying to, okay, get that to bulge a little bit more, for example. Okay. All right, that's in 2D though, but the BlendCrv command will actually also work in 3D. So in this case, you'll see I have the same lines, except I've sort of moved them up into space, right? And actually even rotated them a little bit vertically, right? So they're sort of diagonal in space. So you can do the same. and I'm just going to go through and you can like see the results. So you'll see that these sort of 3D curves, it will also basically track the tangencies and bend the curves to basically track and, you know, merge more or less seamlessly into them. You can still change the sort of shape handles as you're doing them. Right, these, although it becomes a lot trickier because this becomes something that you're modifying in 3D space. Right? Okay. All right. Now, sure, you have fillet edge, fillet surface. Now, if we obviously we have BlendCrv, then we'll have blend surface, right? Same idea. So, blend surface. So let's pick this segment for first edge. You pick the edge here, this edge to this edge. Enter. And this one actually, you'll have to be careful. The same thing, you know, I made the same mistake, so I'm going to do it again. So you want to stay on either like the top or the bottom of these edges. So if I stay on the bottom and enter, then I'll get a sort of flat sort of chain, right? And enter, right? Now, if I accidentally, or in this case, I'll intentionally, right? I'll click on the bottom of this side and the top of that side, then you'll see it, you'll get this sort of flipped twisting thing, and it will actually fail, right? So you just want to make sure you're staying consistent with the end of which side you're selecting, so it will do the command correctly. So keeping to the top or keeping to the bottom, it's fine. Right, so similarly. Now, you'll notice that the blend is a little bit looser, right, compared to the fillet, where the fillet is based off of a real mathematical radius. The blend sort of is looser and interpolates things, and these are not basically radial curves. These are freeform curves. All right, now blend surface works in 3D as well. So here, blend surface. So first edge, clicking towards the top, right? Say OK, right? Same thing here, clicking towards the same side, enter, and you'll get this. And you can adjust these. I try not to change them too much unless you're really trying to do something, and you'll get that. Okay. Okay, actually these two should have been over here. This is the original. All right, let's actually look at this. This is the original as well. You'll see that this is actually just an open box, right? It's a poly surface. I exploded and deleted one of the sides. This as well, and this is a box as well. I rotated it a little bit. And so if you have an arrangement like this, you'll find that you can actually blend surface all the sides together, as long as you don't change your blend parameters. So blend surface and say, okay, that side, for example, and then this side to this side, and you'll see that I'm really trying to keep the same sides. I'm clicking on the same sides of these line segments so I don't get a twisted knot, right? So if it's the top, then it's the top. And this actually becomes a closable. If I copy it out, right? This is a closable poly surface. I can take them and join them together into one poly surface, right? Now, you'll see that when I'm running the blend surface command, it actually has this thing called select segment for first edge, right? So I can actually chain select the edges as long as I'm trying to keep things consistent. So you'll see that I go sort of clockwise, but keeping to this side of each line segment. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and then I'll press enter, and it will ask me for the segment for the second edge and this side, and then you'll go 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it'll ask you, basically once you're done, it'll ask you for a seam point to adjust. This should be right, like these corners should correlate, right? Once you enter, say okay, and you'll see that that basically allows you to do these all at once, right? Instead of doing one by one, this does them all together. All right. So I'm actually going to pull this and put it here, right? And you'll see this. This command is called OffsetSrf. It's one of my favorites, actually. You can take any poly surface or surface. It doesn't really matter. If it's a single surface, it'll basically offset the surface, right? It's the same. It's the surface version of OffsetCrv. So offset surface. Just to kind of show you what it does on a normal surface, let's try it here first. So like this one, right? And enter and give it a distance. Let's do a thickness of 2, so you can probably see a little better. You'll see it has these arrows that ask you for a direction. You can flip them by clicking on flip all. Do you want to go upwards or do you want to go downwards? That sort of thing. Is it solid or not? If it's solid, this will actually offset into a solid thing. The corners rounded or sharpened, that's another option that will come up in poly surface. But let's just do it. So you see it actually thickens your surface automatically, right? If I ran it not as a solid, then it will basically do this. It's a single offset surface. But for the most part, if you're trying to, let's say, do something for 3D printing or adding thickness to walls or surfaces, then yes, you want it to be solid, right? Okay, so that's what it does on single surfaces. And in these, you can sort of do them all together, right, eventually. Depending on, do you want to merge them, make them into walls that have thickness, do they all have the same thickness, all that sort of stuff. Right, so that's pretty cool. What it does on, let's say, things like this, poly surfaces, offset surface, okay. Now you'll see that there are 2 options here. One that we care about. This one, corner equals round or corner equals sharp. We'll try the sharp one first, and so you'll see is that okay. It basically offsets everything outwards to kind of give this box thickness, right? And everything's actually offset and cleaned up correctly. If I actually merge all the faces of this, it'll basically be as if we had modeled this box from scratch, right? All of those sort of lines are cleaned up. Now, if I did the corner equals rounded option, like that, then you'll see it does this. Okay, so it does this. That's what the corners do, whether or not they're interpolated to be rounded out or are they interpolated to be sharp. Now you can offset it, outwards or inwards. So if you flip it, then obviously because you're going inwards, you won't have any of those rounded corners. Okay, so that's what that does. So it actually works to a certain extent, not always, to a certain extent on complex surfaces like this. So let's try that. Let's keep it outwards. So if you'll see that, and I'll kind of actually go through this a couple times. If you do this outwards with, let's say, sharp corners, okay, you'll see that this is harder for you to calculate. And actually fails, right? Some of these surfaces may not it's unable to extend them far enough to close it cleanly. If I do it inwards though, flip all, go inwards and corners sharp, you'll see that it actually works, right? And you can merge all faces and it'll actually clean up as basically a solid. Right, so this actually has thickness. It's, this actually is something I actually used to take a long time to model correctly in Rhino 4, but now they have it cleaned up in a way that it works more or less automatically. So that's the sort of difference, at least in this case, between going outwards and inwards. However, you'll see that actually the same command, whoops, if I do offset surface and I go outwards, but I do rounded corners. For some reason, the rounded corner version works, right? Because the rounded corner version basically is just offsetting the surface and then continuing this with a fillet, right? So it's easier to calculate for Rhino. So this version actually works. And actually, we should just copy this over. So I'll do that. Going outwards, rounded, like that. And for this one, and you kind of already saw the difference between that. So this one will go offset surface, will go inwards and sharp. Okay, and just for good measure, we'll merge all the faces. And you can do the same with this one too. Right, so these get cleaned up. Okay, so that's the sort of some of the options that come with that. And it's a really, really useful command in terms of giving your surfaces thickness. All right, down here, let's copy this cube a couple times. Midpoint. So BlendEdge. I'm going to show this BlendEdge. So it asks me for an edge to blend. So you click this one, right? Show radius, yes. Okay. And then it will show you the ends, right? Now this is actually sort of interesting because sure, you know, we learned that you can kind of change this earlier. So you can make this, you know, well, let's keep this one. Let's make this side 4. But there's a lot of options here. Don't worry about all of them, but the thing is that you can add handle. So if I click on add handle, then I can actually add a blend handle anywhere I want. So I can put one here and maybe put one there and enter when done, right? Now once I've added them in, then I can actually make this smaller. So click that and make it, let's say 0.5. Make that, I don't know, 2.5, right? So you can actually manipulate the wear and the radius of these blends as you go to do something like that. Okay. By the same sort of effect, you can actually do it on multiple edges at the same time, right? So now you do have to be careful that you don't change the ones where they all intersect, because that will mess things up completely. And you can try it on your own, just saying that it will sort of mess things up. So I'll add a few handles here or there, just sort of randomly. Enter, and then just sort of drag some of them to kind of get a slightly different effect. Maybe drag some of the end ones bigger or smaller. Whoops. 4 and 2 and enter. Right. So you'll see that you're able to do multiple variable blends at the same with intersecting edges at the same time. Okay. All right. All right, so that's part 1 of this assignment, and part 2 will be sort of all this stuff on the side. Let me move it a little bit more over here.